Hi, everyone. I am taking up the question that I started with my last vlog, which is there anything inherently narcissistic about the idea of be your own hero? Or might that connection of that sentiment with narcissism have a link to the gender of the hero in question? And last week, I looked at the difference between the t shirt saying, be a hero, and those saying, I need a hero, this for boys and this for girls. And the idea is that when girls and boys daydream or position themselves in their daydreams in a story, that you have the boys daydreaming about doing the rescuing, and the girls supposedly, sometimes, but not always, dreaming about being rescued. So, do we really need female heroes? So, now I want to look at the phrase itself, be your own hero. What does it mean? And I want to start, because I've thought about this a bit, and I want to start by talking about what it doesn't mean, at least based on the superhero stories that I have consumed. Admittedly, I am not as much of an expert as a lot of other YouTube reviewers in terms of being a long-time comic book reader. But I have seen a lot of superhero films, and I have read some comics. I'm getting better at that. I'm reading more as I explore these kinds of stories. And there are two things I think it doesn't mean that a lot of people may mistakenly think it means. And the first is that be your own hero does not mean that you are always right and that you never make a mistake. Also, be your own hero doesn't mean that you never need help. In fact, in all the superhero films I've seen, at some point, the hero does need some sort of help. Along the way, somebody has to step in and do something to help that superhero succeed. And sometimes superheroes themselves even need to be rescued. The first superhero movie I really fell in love with, and again, this is showing my Gen X age, is 1978's Superman starring Christopher Reeve. Now, I admit that 9-year-old me thought that Christopher Reeve was super hot. But beyond that, the movie had this wonder about it. And that was what captivated me. I have never seen an, anything more recent that could equal that or that has captured that sense of wonder in the same way this 1978 film did. I think perhaps it has to do with the world that we live in now, that we live in a wised up world. And maybe it's just hard to capture that element of wonder that we were able to, that the filmmakers were able to back in 78. And I remember watching this film and noting that towards the end of the movie, Superman found himself in jeopardy. In other words, it wasn't so different from the more recent 2025 Superman, where people got all upset because Superman spent a part of his screen time in captivity and he needed to be rescued. Well, so did Christopher Reeve. You know who had to rescue him near the end, near the climax, just before the climax, before he saved the day? The villain's girlfriend. She rescued him. He needed that help. And then, of course, he did what heroes do and he saved the world. So it doesn't mean that you don't need help. It doesn't mean that you don't need encouragement from others or connection to others. Usually, and here's why I don't understand where this accusation of narcissism comes from, usually being a hero means saving the world, helping others, helping other people. What in the world is narcissistic about that? So that's what being a hero doesn't mean. Doesn't mean that you're never wrong, and it doesn't mean that you never need help. So, with that aside, what does it actually mean? And I think I've boiled it down to something fairly simple. To be your own hero means that you take initiative. You see a problem, and rather than waiting around for somebody else to solve the problem, somebody else to step in and do what needs to be done, you ask yourself, what can I do? Given my skill set, given what I'm good at, how can I be, if not the key to saving the day, then at least be a part of it? What can I do? And once you have found the answer to that question, you act. You don't hesitate. You're willing to take the risk because you are risking something you value highly in order to achieve something you value even more highly, which is justice or kindness, the overthrow of cruelty, the overthrow of cruel power, because superheroes are nearly always butting heads with some flaw in the power structure, some injustice, some cruelty within said power structure. So, acting on initiative, deciding this is my responsibility, I need to do this. And that's what it means to be your own hero. That initiative makes you your own hero, and if you succeed, other people's as well. Now, regarding Supergirl, I have seen that the embargo has been lifted and reviews are starting to come out, and sadly, it doesn't look good. It looks like the anti woke brigade is going to have a lot to crow about with this one. The reviews aren't good, and there's been no report of word of mouth, but it's disappointing to me. But all is not lost because there is a movie out in theaters right now that does have a female character being her own hero in the sense that she takes initiative. She asks, what can I do to solve this problem that I observe? That movie is Toy Story 5. And the character in question is Jessie the Cowgirl, whom we've gotten to know over several films since she was first introduced in Toy Story 2. And everything that she does, now that she has been elevated to protagonist role, everything that she does is consistent with what we have known about her since her introduction back in Toy Story 2. So she sees that her child, the child who owns her, plays with her, essentially gives her life at this stage in her existence, Bonnie. Bonnie is having trouble making friends. She has a wonderful fantasy life. Bonnie reminded me a lot of myself when I was a kid, because my husband and I, we saw this past Friday evening. So I am coming to you with having seen the film myself rather than just having read reviews. So, Bonnie is a wonderful dreamer, big imagination, but has trouble connecting with people. She has trouble making friends. Jessie sees this, and even from the very beginning of the movie, she is trying to help solve this problem, to try and get Bonnie to interact with others. Rolling herself into a neighbor's yard so that Jessie will have to come. So that Bonnie will have to come and get her, and thus she might speak to the neighbor's kids. Doesn't work, so her first effort fails. And then the situation gets a little bit more complicated because Bonnie's parents get her an iPad. um, lily pad, as it's called. And so Jesse starts to lose Bonnie a little bit as Bonnie becomes more and more immersed in this screen life. And this, of course, activates a fear that we've seen in Jessie, again, all the way back since her introduction, the fear of abandonment. She's dealing with a lot of trauma. Yes, it seems strange to talk about a fictional toy in that way, but that's part of the magic of Pixar, the magic of this series, that yes, she's dealing with some trauma here. She fears being abandoned. But even with that fear, she doesn't lose sight of the goal, which is to help Bonnie make friends. And she pursues that goal. And from time to time, over the course of the movie, she has to ask for help. So if Supergirl isn't the hero that little girls will want to see, Jessie is. So it saddens me to say that the anti woke brigade, the critics I call the anti woke brigade here on YouTube and elsewhere, they don't like Jessie either. They really don't like Supergirl, but they have actually attacked Toy Story 5 as being too woke because Jessie was elevated to protagonist status for this film. And it seems, I hate to say it, the only way that a female protagonist can win over this group is simply not to exist. And they believe that every time a movie with a female protagonist fails, that it's just endorsing their worldview. They count it as proof that um, audiences don't want female heroes. I hate to break it to you guys and gals, Toy Story 5 is a hit. It's made bank. It's a hit with critics, and it's a bigger hit with audiences. The critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is actually lower. They're both in the 90s, but the critic score is actually lower than the audience score, which means this is going to make more money as word of mouth spreads. I guess little girls really do sometimes want to be their own heroes. Thank you very much, and I'll see you with the next one.